Hi, this is Michael Rosenbaum, and welcome to the Path to Enlightenment. This podcast and this recording is designed to share with you how to successfully navigate the spiritual path. It's just what I've been doing or looking to do for a long time, and allow you to kind of demystify some of the spiritual concepts and beliefs and things that we learn and how to understand them in a more accessible way, but also to allow yourself to have an experience of some of these concepts. So each podcast that I do is really designed to give you a deeper understanding as I've received it, as it's come to me, and also a way to begin to experience it. So you have the real wisdom, which is your own personal experience. So today's subject is what I'm calling the soul star. So in order to kind of set the scene for that, let's take a look at what we even mean by soul and how consciousness evolves and how we can access those higher levels of consciousness. So the way I learned it, and also there's a really great exploration and explanation of it from the Theosophical Society in a book I highly recommend. That's called The Textbook of Theosophy by Leadbeater. Anyway, he explains kind of the evolution of consciousness, starting from the formless or God consciousness, splitting off into a unique piece, which he calls the monad, which I call the spirit, the first iteration from the Godhead, so to speak. And then the soul is a further iteration down from the monad, moving towards a separate sense of self. So think of it, if we're just in oneness, or as the Bible says, I am that I am, if I am the I am, well, there is only one, and there's no separation, and there's no way to reflect that back to you. There's just that experience, which is amazing, but it is what it is. And so that intelligence decides to create a separate sense of self, which I was calling the monad or spirit, so that it could reflect back to itself an experience, even though there really is only one. So that's kind of an illusion, but it's a really good illusion because I don't know about you, but I certainly feel like there's a separate me and a separate you. But at the same time, in my spiritual journey and development, I began to discover there's also a oneness that I can experience. And I can experience them both at the same time, a separation and a oneness. And that's the sweet spot of being able to enjoy the unique self, but at the same time know yourself as the one self. That's kind of the game, right? The spiritual path is to do that. So the soul is a further iteration of self away from the oneness. And then the soul splits off and puts down a further separation, which is a human being, an incarnation. At least it's a human being on this planet. And that is a further sense of self, further away. So if you can just somehow imagine that the oneness is like the sun, and the great central sun, whatever that is, as it's called, somehow splits off, and there are these billions of suns, which are rays of that one great sun. So you could say that the spirit is one ray of trillions and trillions and trillions of rays that come off that oneness. So it's a tiny part, tiny spark. And that monad or spirit splits off, and the soul is just a tiny spark of that greater consciousness called spirit, which is a tiny spark of that greater consciousness called oneness, God, absolute beingness, whatever word you want to point to that. And the human being, or me, Michael, is just one little sliver of that soul consciousness. So to reach the spirit consciousness, there's a really big leap. And then to reach God consciousness is it's mind-boggling. How could one possibly do that? However, the spiritual path, the unfolding of the spiritual path, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, is really designed to make that discovery. The evolutionary process is to rediscover yourself as that oneness. The moving away from the oneness in the Theosophical Society, Leadbeater calls that involution, moving more towards separation, away from oneness, and evolution is moving back towards that experience of oneness. So it's just kind of a backdrop. So I'm calling this thing the soul star. And the reason I do that is because in my spiritual studies, and I've been part of a spiritual school for a long time, since 2006, and we've learned all different ways to begin to discover ourselves, our spiritual nature, starting with the soul, expanding into the spirit, and then expanding into that oneness. That's the kind of the trail that we've been taking. And the soul is the first stop. So, in order to make that discovery, in order to make that bigger leap, you have to make the leap to the soul and make that leap um, to that part of your consciousness and become what I would call soul infused so that you know that part. Now, from my understanding, when we have an incarnation, which is maybe one day in the life of your soul, from your soul's perspective, it's not that big a deal, whatever happens in this lifetime, but it's kind of a test balloon out to experience different things. So it's out to go into the third dimension because the soul lives in the fifth dimension or above. And from the third dimension, we experience life in a completely different way than we would in the fourth dimension or the fifth dimension. So it's an opportunity to experience life. It's actually slowed down, much slower. The vibrations are slower. So it allows you to examine and experience things much more closely and slowly and examine them. But on the other hand, because it's slow and dense, it means change takes a lot longer. That's the downside of that double-edged sword. But if you can live or know yourself as a soul and then the spirit, you can enjoy that openness and not get bogged down in the density, but you can enjoy what this world has to offer. And so, how do you access the soul? And so I have many different things I teach my clients. One of the things that I've learned in my spiritual school, how to begin to build that pathway to the soul. Sometimes it's called the Rainbow Bridge. And one of the ways that I came across how to do this was introduced to me in my spiritual school, probably about 12 years, 13 years from this recording, and was introduced this idea called the soul star. That's what I want to present to you today. And the soul star was introduced by a master who used to live on the earth. His name is called Djwhal Khul. And Djwhal Khul wrote a whole series of books through an author who was a channel for his information. Her name is Alice Bailey. So there's a whole series of books called the Alice Bailey books, which is his information, Master Djwhal Khul, into the world. He said the reason why he picked this particular person, Alice Bailey, was because she was just sensitive and she could pick up on his information clearly, but she knew nothing about spirituality. So she wasn't going to add her own agenda into it. At least that's what he said. So it's interesting to read her book. So in one of her books, Djwhal Khul introduced this idea of the soul star as a way to begin to activate your connection with the soul. So the soul is kind of in the background, and if you don't do anything to connect with it, then it stays in the background. And then when you pass away out of this lifetime, it makes its journey back up to the fifth dimension and it takes whatever it learned from that experience at that time. However, you don't have to wait till you die and go through that journey to connect with the soul and begin to experience it. And it can begin to grow and be informed by that. And it likes that. I think it likes that. When I do that, it's smiling at me. So it can do the same for you. So this was one of the ways that I learned that was simple and easy to begin to get you connected to your soul consciousness. And it starts with a visualization. One of the things I've learned, so I'm a spiritual development coach, which is all these things I've learned in my spiritual school, but I'm also a hypnotherapist, call myself a transcendental hypnotherapist. And the teacher who teaches my mystery school also was my hypnotherapy teacher. And what hypnotherapy is really good at, or at least what I use it for, is to find and dig out those rough spots of the ego consciousness, which is a lower vibration, and transform them and transmute them, open up the space to connect with your higher consciousness. And one of the laws that we learn in hypnotherapy, I also learned it in positive psychology, was that whatever you focus on increases in strength. And I think you can see the truth of that in your own experience. Whatever you ruminate on really kind of gets bigger, grabs a hold of you. That's true, positive and negative, both poles. So if you're worried and anxious about something and you start thinking about it and worrying about it and what ifs and so on, that worry gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? But if you're thinking about something uplifting and happy and you keep focusing on it, that higher vibration begins to increase in size and get bigger and bigger and bigger still. So it works both ways. So what Djwhal Khul created was an invocation, a mantra to say to yourself that activates the vibration of the soul star, which he calls something that's connected to your soul, that knocks on the door and wakes up that vibration and brings it into your consciousness. Now, that does a lot of great things. So, first of all, it connects you to being in touch with your soul, which is a good thing. And it activates that beautiful experience. But it does more than that because it brings in a higher vibration into your consciousness. That includes into your mental consciousness, your mental body, your lower mental body, which is referred to as your ego consciousness, or that's the way I talk about it, into your emotional body, which is the fourth dimensional body, and into your physical etheric body as well. So all those blocks that I just talked about that I use hypnotherapy to take care of, this process also begins to take care of that and begins to dissolve and resolve that, which opens up the space for you for a deeper connection with your soul. And Djwhal Khul talks about that, how you can use that vibration to cleanse and clean your energy field, which has your physical, etheric body, your mental, and emotional bodies in it. So it's really a win-win situation. And by focusing on it like this, you activate something and you feel and sense it. And what I'm going to do in this podcast, I'm laying it out for you. I'm giving you the information for you to practice and play with But I'm going to do another podcast where I'm actually going to do a meditation. I'm going to do a soul star meditation using the process that Djwhal Khul brought in, and I'm going to meld it with what I know from my spiritual development, my spiritual classes, and my own personal information that's come down from me, from my soul and my spirit. So the soul mantram starts with visualizing about 6 inches above your head that there's a star there, a five-pointed silver star or a white star, and just imagining that in your mind. So maybe even just take a moment now, close your eyes, and just imagine there's a star, a silver star above your head. At first, that star might just be a thread of light. It might not be that bright. But as you work with this, you'll find it'll get brighter and brighter. So it starts with the idea of focusing on that star above your head, about 6 inches above your head. And then you say the following mantra to yourself. And what I like about it is that if you say it slowly and really feel it, if you have a felt sense, it makes it more powerful, helps you focus. And remember, you have five senses, so it doesn't have to be visual. We don't all have a developed visual sense. It might be a tactile thing for you. It might be you might hear a sound associated with it. But I think, and my teacher, my spiritual teacher in my school, keeps encouraging us to make everything a felt sense. If you can feel it in your body, if you can feel it in your consciousness, it has more power. So I'm going to encourage you to make it a felt sense. So I'm going to tell you what the mantra is, and then let's maybe just do it together for a few minutes. Again, I will create a whole separate meditation for you to do that takes you through this process and then shows you how to use that to connect with, clean the energy chakras, and connect with your soul and your higher consciousness. So the way that Djwhal Khul said it, he has these different statements. The first statement is, I am the soul. The second statement is, I am the light divine. The third statement is, I am love. The fourth statement is, I am will. And the last statement is, I am fixed design. So I am the soul is meant to connect you to your soul's vibration and above. I am the light divine is really connecting you with your spirit in a way, the divine energy, the divine light. Everything is light and light is intelligence. I am love, to me, is looking to connect you with the cosmic love, unconditional love. I am will, to me, is asking you to align your will with the greater will that comes from greater consciousness, from your soul, from your spirit, and from the Godhead. So you're in line with that vibration. And I am fixed design says, I am part of that plan, that balanced energy plan that comes from the highest consciousness, because we are a seed of that. So this is saying, I want to activate that seed. And there's another law in science that says when you bring in a coherent and balanced vibration and you introduce into an incoherent part of you, the incoherent part of you begins to shift and change and become more coherent. So, in a lot of the work that I do with my clients, when we're looking at those ego blocks and so on, we bring in this, what I call divine silent awareness, which allows those lower vibrations to begin to mimic the higher vibrations, dissolve and resolve, and begin to be gone. But this little process in this mantra is really designed to do the same thing. So why don't we practice this? And again, I'll be doing a full meditation for you to do. But just for the heck of it, for the fun of it, right? Let's take a few minutes and just go through the process. So you close your eyes, take a couple of nice deep breaths, and you imagine that soul star, that bright star 6 inches above your head. And then you say the words, I am the soul. You can say it out loud or silently, and you just feel that star beginning to vibrate a little more. Feel the effects of that. Then you make the statement, I am the light divine, out loud or silently, and you feel like a divine light is coming inside. And feel the effect of that. Then you make the statement, I am love, and feel like you're connecting to cosmic love, unconditional love. Just breathe that in, feel the effects of that. I am will. Say that to yourself out loud or silently. And imagine you're connecting to your soul's will, your spirit's will, that higher vibration that's so much wiser than our lower consciousness. And feel yourself aligning with that. And I am fixed design. Imagine that you're saying, I'm activating the seed of consciousness that comes from the divine, that has a plan, a beautiful unfolding plan, and I'm aligning with it. I am fixed design. And feel the power of that. Now, using your visualization or your mind or feel it, imagine from that soul star 6 inches above your head, going down at about a 45-degree angle is a light that goes about a foot below your feet, bends like a right angle about 6 inches under your feet. There's another star there called the Earth Star. So imagine activating that with that light that you've activated. And then imagine there's a line of light that goes right up through your pelvis as if there's uh, a light that goes right up the center of your spine, maybe 6 inches or a foot wide, right up what's called a sushumna or the God tube, back up to the soul star. So you've activated the soul star light. It goes down 45 degrees, bends to this Earth star, back up that tube of light, back up to the soul star. So there's a movement. So close your eyes for a second and feel that movement for a minute. Let it vibrate, sense and feel it, however you do that. There's no right or wrong here. Feel your soul's light beginning to be activated and it begins to balance your whole system, which includes all your energy chakras. And then open your eyes, but still feel that activated. What did that feel like? What was the experience like? So I want to give you a 30-day challenge. We found in positive psychology, if you do a little something for 30 days, it begins to get really powerful. And if you do something easy that you know you can do, you end up doing it and it becomes a beautiful habit. So for 30 days, every morning when you get up, take 5 minutes to close your eyes, take some deep, relaxing breaths, feel the energy of the soul star above your head, Say that soul mantra. I am the soul. I am the light divine. I am love. I am will. I am fixed design. Feel that light from the soul star going down at 45 degrees, bending at a right angle to the Earth star, and feel it coming all the way up your body, right through the center of your body, through all your chakras, back to the soul star. And sit in that energy for a few minutes. I will put down in the bottom of the podcast that mantra so you have it. And if you like this, then come back again and do the meditation that I'll lay out in the next podcast. And by the way, at present, I'm doing a free spiritual meditation every 2 weeks, first and third Monday of the month from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Happy to have you join us. You just have to contact me. Just look at my contact information below and send me your email, and I'll put you on the list. All right, you have a blessed day. Happy activating your soul star.